Partway through the reading, a lady appears. Stepmother and auntie, all in the same sentence, for around 98 years. This little bit of a nasty story's been going around.
It's a dangerous game to assume, why didn't she look after the boys better? I think we're a bit hard on her, judgmental.
Yeah, it's like she's facing her demons. They're gone. They're dead.
Will you imagine even a 14-year-old of today with 6 children?
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Medium's Table. I'm your host, Michelle Gardner. This podcast is your personal invitation to join me at the intersection of the everyday and the extraordinary. Together, we'll explore the magic of mediumship, share spiritual stories, and connect with fellow mediums on this incredible journey. So grab a seat, pour yourself a cuppa, and come join us at the Medium's Table, where spirits gather and stories unfold. On today's show, I'd like to welcome back my sister Lisa. Lisa, welcome back.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Yes, we have got quite a story in store for you today. Let's start from the beginning, because the beginning is where it all began, obviously. Now, in front of me, I've got my notes. This is another reading that we're going to be going over, and this is about your family. Well, the family that you're married into.
Yes, yep.
I was doing a reading with your father-in-law, Gordon. Partway through the reading, a lady appears. Now, this can happen in readings. Mediums around the world could tell you that this happens. They sometimes call it piggybacking, or they will bring in someone they feel needs to come in because there needs to be a message that's said. And sometimes other spirits will use that link almost to just pop on in and say hi.
Yeah.
When I'm doing this reading, a young lady with dark hair appears. She's showing me a ceremony or a gathering, and a small gathering. She wears a medium length blue dress. She brings me the feeling as if she's actually not wanting to go through with this ceremony. It's at that point that I begin to realize that this is your father-in-law, Gordon's stepmother and auntie, all in the same sentence.
Yes, yeah.
He's actually bringing her in because he wants to clear something up that's been going on in the family.
Yeah.
Might I add, if we do the math correctly.
Well, she was born in 1912. Yeah.
So today she would have been 112. So let's just say, because after the fact you've told me she came into the family when she was stepped into that household, your father-in-law's household, when she was 14. So she'd be about, correct me if I'm wrong, 98? This would have been 98 years ago when she came into this family.
I'm not sure when she passed away, though, because we're not in contact with them. So yeah.
But regardless, for around 98 years, this little bit of a nasty story's been going around about Ada.
Yes. Well, stories get twisted. Let's just say it's a dangerous game to assume, isn't it? Even from the spirit world, it's like, hang on a sec.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. But so we'd been talking about Ada. I've been talking about it with my mother-in-law about the way she brought up the kids. So I'll explain a little bit about that, bit of a background story. So Gordon's mother, which is Grace's sister, Ada's sister, and her name was Grace. So she had 6 boys on the farm with her husband. They were all happy. And when the youngest was 10 months old, she fell pregnant again, but lost the baby and got an infection and passed away. They got her to the hospital, but it was too late. So then her sister came to help look after the boys. Yeah, she was about 14 because it was too much. 6 boys, too much.
Yeah.
For Stephen and looking after the farm and all that. So she came in, and then after a little while, with the small town gossips, they just thought, let's just get married. So
yeah,
it was society, I guess, pushed him to get married. And then she had a further 10 kids, 9 while they were on the farm. So there's a lot of kids.
Yeah, that is a lot of kids.
Yeah, it's a lot of kids. So with her being pregnant and raising all these kids, there was not a lot of time for anything. Well, obviously there was time for something because she kept getting pregnant. But the thing was that she fed her children first, and then the original 6, or the older boys, last. So by the time they got to have food, there wasn't much left, and they're growing.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a bit of animosity. That's it. Towards that. So just imagine though, because this affected them during their adulthood. Through all that, they all had their different issues that they harboured different grievances from their childhood. But just imagine too that life was hard back then. There was a lack of food and clothing. Stephen got land off the army, is that correct? I think off the Defence Force. They were allocated blocks of land.
I'm not sure. I don't know the full story.
Okay. So he had, and it's hard. It was hard on the land, and in the area of the Otways and Colac, it was cold. So they had the weather to contend with. The manual labour was hard. And in those days, the boys left school when they were of age and could do it to either go to work to earn money for the family or work on the farm with their father. And the girls helped out at home. They didn't last very long at school, and they were either sent off to help another family in the area or they were married off. So one of the boys, harbouring the grievances, one of the boys even changed his last name because he just didn't want anything to do with the family. But they did reconcile later on. Thank goodness. But life was hard. So, and there was always this this thing of, why didn't you look after the boys better? Why did she not show them love, give them more food? The clothing they had was secondhand. People would give them stuff because they were so poor. It's like they were, living day by day, pretty much. Just to survive. So, and to work, farm life is hard anyway. Even in this day and time, it is hard. And you're not just, rolling around in money. Do you know what I mean? Like it's you're living moment by moment. So life was hard. So there was a bit of I don't know, I think we're a bit hard on her, judgmental, very judgmental. And to assume a lot of stuff. But as you will find out in hindsight, you then begin to feel a little bit sorry and appreciative of her. The appreciation and gratitude is there for her. So so I'll let you continue with that. So
now let's just clear up for those listeners that don't know, Colac is in Victoria, which is one of the very bottom state of Australia.
Yes.
Where it's quite cold. Does it snow there? I'm not sure if it snows there.
Look, I tell you, I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised.
And I mean, just because it was, and just because it would have been the 1920s when she came into that family, if she was born in 1912.
I'd say in the 1930s.
20. Okay. Yep. So she would have come into that. So you imagine the 1930s.
Yeah. Young girl.
Yeah.
Teenager. She's only just a teenager.
Exactly. 14 years old. You haven't had your own children to understand what it's like to be a mother. And suddenly you step into this household where there's 6 children, a 10-month-old baby, and they're all boys. So you can imagine,
rough and tumble and everything else. Yes.
And trying to scrape together the knowledge on what do you do with these children, plus grieving for your sister who's passed away.
Yes.
And coping with the rest of the family who's probably grieving, more than likely, because that was,
missing their mother. Yeah.
Exactly. And the husband, Stephen, whose wife it was that passed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And imagine how he felt being left with 6 children having to work. What do you do with them? There's no, counseling groups. There's no community services.
And I believe that he took the road that most people who are down and out on their luck take.
Yeah.
Was it, having a drink and escaping somewhat
reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to the reading. I'm doing a reading for Gordon, your father-in-law. He brings this lady in, and that's when I realize, hang on a minute, this is Ada. Ada is actually quite upset. I can hear her when I'm doing this reading when she comes in upset. She doesn't want to go through with it, but she's forced to. She has no choice, which causes spite and resentment. So she starts to impress upon me and show me how she was feeling at the time. I hear another woman rush up to Ada. Now, when this happens, you get a lot of, you sense things, a lot of knowings. It's like in a dream when you can see what's going on, but you also have this incredible amount of knowing what's happening when you're having in a dream state as well. So there's the same kind of scenario. So this woman rushes up to Ada, and I hear her screaming at Ada, look what you've done. This lady's really upset, angry, hurt about what happened. Now, this lady who rushes up to Ada feels like Stephen's first wife, who is also the sister to Ada, Grace.
Yep.
I do believe I did a reading for Grace. I've done a lot of readings. We'll get to those. We'll get to those readings.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get to those readings as time goes on, and it pieces together each individual personality.
Yep.
I see and hear Ada frantic and crying and, backwards and forwards. And she's asking herself, do I write this down? She just wants to be free of it. She wants it all just to go away. Ada did not want to go ahead with the ceremony. Now, when she's showing me this, it's like she just wants to write a letter and run and just be free of it all. But realistically, back then, where is she going to go? What's she going to do?
Yeah.
She's committed. And it's the country town. You can't go very far. And she wouldn't have had any money. I'm just hearing her crying, just wailing. It's like she's facing her demons. And she cried. I do remember this part. She cried. It was almost like it came through instantly. And it was so loud. It kind of startled me because I didn't expect it. But she's showing me the intensity of how she felt, the crying, the wailing. She did not want to do it. So that shows you where her head was at this time when she was forced to do this. I hear the name Georgie, and I hear, okay, Georgie came. Now, I can only assume perhaps a friend. I didn't go into it. Ada was quite depressed, like she needed saving. I hear, but that was her own product. And it was like it was her own doing for getting involved with the family and agreeing to the marriage. So whether she had a friend that came by, checking on her, seeing how depressed she was, but also the realization that she did agree to this. Not that she would have had much choice, but you know what I mean? God, it just would just be like a vicious cycle, really, in your own head. You would just really do your head in. I'm being brought the words of healing are like a flowing stream. They're washing through her and around her. At this point, I'm struggling to describe what I see and sense. And it's almost like she's freeing herself by coming through and telling her story.
Yeah.
And it's helping her bring some sort of relief. And that's what she's sort of showing me how, and this has happened many a time through readings and from the spirit world. They'll come in, if they've got a dark secret or, something that they really need to share and free themselves of, they'll say it in a reading because they couldn't tell anyone when they were alive. It's almost like, finally, I can be free of this. I don't need to hold on to this anymore. And a lot of people, I think, they're gone, they're dead. How does that work? It's still stuck in the emotional body. And this is some of the emotion and the things that can come through. Some may call it karma, that can come through when they come into another lifetime.
Yeah.
Feelings, feelings of, let's just say Ada was to come into another life again. She may have feelings of resentment or fear of commitment. So this is something that can help them to be at peace with what happened and get closure.
Yeah.
I was apologizing to Ada. I'm still, they're still got emotion, feeling, for what happened to her in her previous life. And she then asks me, do you want me to stay around? Well, of course I did. Yeah. This is while I was having a bit of a talk to her about how sorry I am for the situation she was in. I'm, empathizing with her. There was really hard times. It was hard days. She was young. They just weren't good times. And I was really sorry that she had to go through that. So she was still towards me sort of saying, do you still want me to be here? Is it okay? Like she's trying to get permission. Is it still okay that I can be here with you?
Yeah.
And of course, I was happy for her to be there. I was thanking Gordon for bringing her through because her story needed to be told and he needed to put her story forward. Obviously, Ada hearing what he said about her on this side when he was alive and her story was not a very good one. So obviously for Gordon as well, this would have been almost like saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please come in and tell your story.
Mm.
Then there's more about Ada that comes to light while I'm doing the reading. I hear a male voice, and then I'm seeing her being intimate and kissing a man. She's a younger teenager, adolescent, so it would have been around that time before she committed. Could have possibly even been when she was committed. It begins to feel like that she had a love interest as a young adolescent, or perhaps she was lonely and this person was just hanging around. He'd drop in during the day. And I mean, back then it would have been lonely on a farm.
Yeah.
You've got a husband that, was forced to marry you. Now, I do believe I did a reading on Stephen as well, and that does come through, which will be in another episode.
Yes.
I'm also hearing someone yelling at her, yelling, "Stay out of my head." Now, this is also Ada. You can imagine the conflict. She's married to this man, or she's about to be married to this man. She's already in love with someone else. She's got someone else there. That's where her passion lies, her love interest. But now she's been forced into another direction.
Yeah.
I also hear there were several types of guys. There's a man with dark hair and a mustache. He wears a singlet, which would be like a tank top for other countries. And this is in the old days. He wears braces that hold his pants up. He's it's almost like when she shows me, he's out the door of the house, like wanting to come in to see her. This man has a deep voice and he says, now he's also stepping in. So in this one reading where I'm just going to bring through one, there ends up being three. Okay, so the voice says, well, I'll take them for you. It's like he's trying to give me or pass on some files with information in it. Files in a folder full of information about Ada. Now, at the time, I slip into such a state. It's like I go to the other side and it's like I'm wanting to take these files from him that he's handing me. It's like all this information about Ada, but I can't physically take them because unless they manifest into physical form, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And as you can see through all of this, Ada is, had quite a distraught life. So you've got multiple spirits, coming in. Also, this man also explaining about Ada. Was this the same man that she was with when she was an adolescent? Then showing himself older. I didn't go into that side of it because I had already started doing the reading with Gordon and then it stepped into Ada. Mm-hmm. I just left it with Ada. But it was really, I'm just so grateful to be able to share her story and clear up these rumors, these assumptions of what happened and why, no one ever taking into consideration what that was like for her.
Yeah. Well, you imagine even a 14-year-old of today taking on the responsibility of a household with 6 children.
Yeah.
Like that is just, I couldn't even fathom that. That would be just like disaster before they walked in the door.
Oh,
chaos.
I was just about to say chaos.
Yeah.
And you're going also through the grieving process. Every single one of them is grieving for their mother, sister, wife, all of the above.
And then I also wonder too whether she had a little bit of resentment towards Grace. How dare you leave me with this kind of thing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And in other episodes, we'll go into Grace's story and Stephen's story as well.
Yes.
To hear what, who they were as people and hear their own unique character come through. But, so it's a very, very interesting unraveling, I like to say. Finally, after all these years, she's had the opportunity to come through, which I am incredibly honoured for, that she's chosen me for that to happen. And for the opportunity to share her story and clear the air about who she really was and what she really went through during those times. It kind of gives you a huge sense of gratitude for the day and age that we live in now.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Because, and back then as well, they wouldn't have had child support back then, would they?
No, absolutely not.
So they had to rely on the community.
Yes.
It was a very community, And in
those small towns, it was very community. Reputations travelled quickly via word of mouth.
Yes.
And everybody knew everybody's business. And I'm sure there would have been other families and mothers out there who did what they could when they could. Even the school community. Again, there wouldn't have been much backing behind that, especially in small country schools, who would have catered mainly for farmers and the small town, the town folk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we'll get a little bit more into what it was like. Yeah, in the town of Colac. In other readings that you did, we got a little. It's almost like a little more bit of the piece of the puzzle gets put in to create a landscape of what it was like back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Very fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for joining me again on the show, and we will see you very soon on the Medium's Table.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me at the Medium's Table. The universe is always speaking. Listen and let your spirit soar. Curious for more? Click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe.